Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Ramadan Kareem. On behalf of the UAE Internal Auditors Association, I welcome you to the third session of the 5 series that are being held during the International Internal Audit Awareness Month that has been chosen by the IAA Global to be held during May. We received today a special Awareness Month message from Anthony Pugliese, the IA Global President and COO, which we are sharing with you before we begin our session.
Hi, I'm Anthony Pugliese, President and CEO of the Institute of Internal Auditors. On behalf of our staff at IAA headquarters and the Global Board of Directors, I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage and celebrate your contributions to internal auditing and for your continued advocacy for our profession. It's only through your efforts that we can gain a better understanding, acceptance, and support for the important work each of you do day in and day out. Many professions enjoy an inherently universal understanding of their value. Most people understand the role of a doctor, for example, so a campaign designed to build awareness of what doctors do is generally not necessary. Unfortunately, this may not be true for the internal audit profession. In fact, even internal auditors' close friends and families don't always understand exactly what we do. That's why each year in May, the IIA encourages members, chapters, and affiliates around the world to celebrate internal audit accomplishments as part of Internal Audit Awareness Month. We have much to be proud of, and spreading the word each May allows us to display the great value internal audit brings to organizations and to the public. The IIA supports efforts to raise awareness of the internal audit profession and its value. The aim is not only to dispel misperceptions, but also to enhance the business community's knowledge of the essential role internal auditing plays in strong organizational governance, internal control, and effective risk management. When management and boards of directors come to fully appreciate our contributions, they ensure the internal audit activity is adequately sourced and effectively utilized. Similarly, as the general public becomes more familiar with what internal auditors do, the number of individuals who consider it a viable career option rises, fueling the profession with even greater talent. As an internal audit professional, you play an important role in raising awareness and elevating the profession. Whether you're actively involved in your local chapter or affiliate, new to the field, part of an extensive audit team, or the sole practitioner at your organization, there's something you can do to elevate the profession. Over the past year, we've been in uncharted territory, personally and professionally. As a result of the devastating coronavirus pandemic that continues to this day, our lives and jobs have been directly affected, with greater demands placed on internal auditors at all levels, as we continue to work through the short and long-term challenges with many unknowns still in front of us. Last year, we modified Internal Audit Awareness Months to respect the unexpected demands on your time. Instead of concentrating it in one month, we encouraged activism as best you could over a longer period of time. We asked that you focused on what mattered the most, but also pause now and then to chronicle your successes, where you and your teams rose to the occasion and demonstrated the value your efforts were bringing to your organizations. I was grateful to see such incredible commitment. Through a variety of virtual events and awareness campaigns designed to inform and engage, dozens of chapters and institutes around the world and many more individuals shared their passion for internal auditing, raising awareness of the profession and helping stakeholders understand the value of internal audit in their organizations. We showed our appreciation by honoring 34 affiliates with Building Champion Awards. Thank you. We're not back to normal, or not the normal we used to know, but what hasn't changed is the vital role internal audit plays at all times, and especially during crisis. So if you haven't already started, I'd like to encourage you to spread the word and tell the world in May. The IIA offers a number of ways, as we say, to shout it out, and this year marks the rise of the trusted advisor. We have customizable tools, planning resources, and thought-provoking content to help advocate for and build awareness of the internal audit profession. Access our awareness toolkit and thought leadership during May or anytime year-round. Go to the IIA's global or North American website and look for Promote the Profession for more information. Despite unprecedented challenges, You've pushed ahead with courage and determination to help build awareness of what internal audit brings to our stakeholders. It's through the collective efforts of affiliates and chapters around the world that we raise the profile of internal auditors as key to the success of all organizations. Thank you for everything you do to elevate the profession each and every day. For IIA Global, I'm Anthony Pugliese, and thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions while listening to the session today, please write it down in the questions section. And the presentation will be sent to you after the session is over, either tomorrow or it's going to be on the website for you to review. Today's speaker is Apurva Yatendra, who is part of the leadership team of the Business Risk Management vertical at ANB and has more than 18 years of experience in internal audit consulting and advisory services. Today, Apurva is going to talk about auditing through robotics, and they are going to be case studies. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Mr. Apurva. Mr. Apurva, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Samya, so much for that introduction, and a very good afternoon to everyone. Firstly, a big congratulations to the UAEIA team for organizing these series of events during the International Internal Audit Awareness Week. I'm sure everybody who's been attending has been finding these sessions quite useful. And to a lot of you, who've attended the UAEIA conferences over the past couple of years. We've presented a couple of times on how robotics and the emerging technologies can be used for doing different kinds of internal audits. So I thought what we'll try and cover in the session today is that instead of laboring too much on the on theoretical concepts and how robotics works and how they can be applied to internal audit. I'm sure all of us are well read and well aware of all of those concepts. And since we've already presented a couple of times, I thought to make it interesting, we'll try and look at actual case studies. These are all case studies that are live implementations across existing clients. They're up and running. So we'll try and take you and showcase you or these several examples of how the emerging technologies have been deployed for doing different kinds of internal audits across different industries and different organizations. So there's a total of 6 case studies that we'll try and look at today. The first one there is across all our organizations, irrespective of which industry type that we're working with. All of us do P2P audits, procure to pay audits. So we have a ready repository of around 180 plus controls. That's an already pre-configured existing library of all the controls that we typically look at as part of internal audits for a P2P process. So we'll obviously show you the repository, but we'll have the team do is that they will actually connect to a live platform, and all of these for one sample control, we will configure the bot from how data collection is done, how the analytics is executed, and how the reporting is done. So that full example we will show you, and hopefully everybody will get a sense of how exactly the automation works, and you'll also get a sense of sometimes when we all think about RPA and robotics, the general sense is that these are very techy items, and you would need specialized skill sets to be able to set up all of these validations. But hopefully once we show you how the system works and some of these case studies, everybody will be able to understand that one doesn't really need some extra technical proficiency, and a lot of the validations can actually be configured by lay users like all of us who understand Excel reasonably well. Then the second one that we will talk about today is an example of an automated invoice validation, again as part of an accounts payable review all of us, look at in vendor payments, and we look at vendor invoices. Typically, we end up looking at a sample of vendor invoices because there's only so much physical invoices that we can look at. So we'll try and showcase how OCR technology can be used to actually, extract relevant information from a vendor invoice, and then how further validations can be built on top of that to do different kinds of audits. The third example is one where I think all of us will agree, a big pain point and a challenge as part of the audits that we do is actually collecting data from the process owners. So we'll try and showcase an example where how a bot can be configured to connect to an external, data source and extract data, and then how OCR or different validation checks can be applied on those data points to actually automate the audit execution. And then another related example there is where the bot will show you a live case of how a bot can actually connect to an ERP system like an SAP or an Oracle and extract data from different reports. So you will see the bot will enter a T code and go across different tabs, and it'll then sort of extract data from SAP, which then we can obviously use for the audit validations that we do. The other example that we are also going to look at today is one of automated KYC validation. So obviously a lot of us across working in industries where KYC is a big part of the customer onboarding requirement. KYC audits become a very important area. So we'll show you an example of how different national IDs and passports can be, templates can be mapped, they can be put in through a machine learning process, and how these can then, how data can be extracted and then validated against an existing customer database. Again, a case here where typically we look at, very small data sets as part of these audits. But with this kind of automation, one will be able to look at the entire population of data and give a good, significantly enhanced level of assurance as part of the audit. And then the last example that we see here, this is one where for a retail store chain, for example, looking at what inventory is doing well, what inventory is not doing well, basically to look at sales performance, and how that kind of an audit can be automated and run through automation. That's the last example that we'll show you. So along with me, I have a couple of my colleagues as well who will assist us, because we're going to be connecting to a live platform, and we're also be going to be showcasing a few of the videos as well. So I have Tejas Jobanputra, who's an associate director with our team, and he's also leading functionally a lot of the work that we're doing on the automation platform. So he will assist us with some of the case studies. And then we also have my colleague Mansi Gandhi. She's also working functionally on the automation platform that we call Root, and she's also on the session, and will be helping us to connect to the live system. So before we get on to the case studies, for those of you who wouldn't have attended the previous sessions, what we'll try and do is maybe just spend not more than 4-5 minutes on just refreshing or updating conceptually how exactly this works, and how the automation platform really goes about working. So as part of the typical audit execution work that we do, there are 3 streams of activities that are typically involved. So there's data collection, where we sit with the process owners, we understand what are the relevant data points, we identify the source systems from which the data is going to come, and then obviously we start writing emails, and we keep waiting for the process owners to send us data. So I'm sure all of us relate to the pain involved in this back and forth. Half the time when the data comes in, it's not complete or it's not relevant, and then you get into a fresh round of back and forth with everybody. Now, once the data eventually comes in, there is obviously the analytics and the validations that we perform on that data. So different kind of validations and checkpoints and all the different audit points that we typically look at. And then finally, once the exceptions come out, there's reporting that we do obviously on that data. So reporting, the writing audit queries to the process owners, and then doing our discussions with the CXOs and senior management, and then eventually to the audit committee. Now, currently, the way that most organizations and a lot of organizations have pretty mature, continuous control monitoring setups already implemented. Now, how all of this is working is that while the analytics execution is still quite mature and advanced in a lot of places, but all of the three streams currently work in individual silos, and there's no integrated sort of system or platform where all of the activities, all the three activities sit in a single place and are sort of easy to manage. Data collection is still manual. We keep writing emails. Reporting is again primarily all manual. On the analytical execution, obviously there are multiple tools and applications that people are still using. So with this automation platform, all the three streams basically reside on one single integrated system, right? So for every line item of an RCM or of an audit program, for every audit check, essentially, there are three bots that typically get set up on the automation platform. So there is a data collector bot. The data collector bot basically connects to different source systems and pulls out and extracts information, relevant information for the audit. It uploads it onto the platform. Again, automated, once set up and configured. Even for repetitive data collection, there's no manual intervention required thereafter. Once the data is received, the entire analytics configuration is also done on the bot. And there is a query builder functionality. One doesn't need technical proficiency. All the validations can be set up on the analytics bot itself and are executed directly on the platform. And then once the exceptions come out, one could configure how the reporting needs to be done. So there are different tabular templates. There are different graphical templates where, again, as a one-time configuration, once you set this up, the output and the exceptions keep getting published in those templates by themselves. So all of these three sit on one single integrated platform, and in an ideal a world when the implementation is done and through, and it's done in a reasonably mature setup, you could have an end state of implementation where, let's say, for a P2P audit, you could set it up at night and go back, and when you come in the morning, you will have all the 180 plus checks executed with exceptions already sitting in your email boxes. So that's the level of efficiency that it's able to achieve. And with the experience that we have across multiple clients, even by conservative estimates, at least 50 to 60% of your of a typical audit universe, is easily automatable and can be set up on the automation system. Now, the other way in which some of these emerging technologies can also be used is the OCR, for example, has a big role to play in a lot of the audits. So for example, the KYC example that I spoke about, where you have to take ID documents and do audits against the customer database. Those kind of audits can be completely automated through OCR. If you were to look at, let's say, invoice validation as part of an accounts payable review, there again, you could use OCR to extract information from the invoice and then do your validations on top of that. Even cases like, let's say, a contract management review. So whether typical contracts have all the mandatory clauses that, let's say, a legal team, basically mandates that at the minimum you should have these clauses at least. So you could use an OCR engine enabled bot to actually read through a contract and confirm that all the clauses are there or not. You could even program it to pick out relevant clauses from the contract and populate in an Excel, and then somebody can then sort of build validations on top of that. So multiple ways in which OCR can also be used, and again, that's something that is integrated with this automation platform. And then obviously maybe not a very widespread internal audit application, but quite a few regulators now mandate to take a live photograph of the customer at the time of customer onboarding. which then has to be matched against a specimen photograph of the customer on let's say a national ID document. Now again, that entire facial recognition matching can be programmed and done through using a bot. Where it will give you a percentage match score, and it sort of confirms whether the photograph matches or not. And then similarly, in instances where you might want to do a signature matching, that whether the relevant authorized signatory has actually signed and approved a particular document, there again the bot can be, through machine learning processes, programmed to look at a specimen signature and match it against a signature on a live document, for example. So multiple ways in which these technologies can be used and applied for internal audit. So that's just a quick recap and a quick update on conceptually how this works, so that everybody has a context before we jump into the case studies. So I'll just request Mansi now to connect to the system. We'll start with the first one, which is the P2P control, and how that can be validated. So in this example, what we'll show you is, we'll just sort of walk you through an existing repository of the platform and how it looks like. And then, we will configure, like I said, one sample control. So, all of us as part of the P2P audit, we try to look at whether any materials are being procured at, varied prices from different vendors during the same period, or let's say spread across 6 months, 10 months, and all of us we typically have a threshold of, let's say, 15, 20%, 10%, depending on the organization materiality levels. If the variance in price is beyond a certain threshold, then obviously that's something that we investigate further. So this entire check we will configure and set up on the bot, and you'll be able to understand how the configuration is done, how the reports come out, how it gets on to how the reporting can be done, the reporting templates and the graphical templates, how dashboard based reporting can be set up. So we'll walk you through all of that. So before we go there, so just to give you a sense of how the system is used. So this is typically an RCM tree of any organization. So if we just get into one examples of let's say like a telco organization, the entire process tree of the organization is configured and set up on the system. So the different functions that are there in, let's say, like a telco setup: customer service, finance, regulatory, marketing, network sales. All of these are created and set up on the system. And then if we go into any one, the different processes in, let's say, a customer service function, activation, call center, all the different processes are configured and set up. And then if you just keep drilling down into the system, you will have different individual sub processes, and you can click on any one process and you will have the detailed risk control matrix of that process already configured and set up. Now these are obviously all model processes that are there as part of a pre-configured library, and obviously for every organization, there will be some bit of a process customization and specification that will need to be updated. But a ready library for quite a few of the industries is already available. Now for each of the line items, for each check, there is a mapping of whether the test can actually be automated or not, whether automation is possible or not, because a lot of times the nature of the validation could be a physical document based validation, or for whatever reason, if it's not really automation is not possible, there will be a mapping of whether it's possible to automate or not. And then for each line item, the data collector bot, the analytics bot, and the reporting bot is sort of mapped. If we just go back to the tree and try to look at a couple of other industries, so if you go to financial services, so that everybody gets a sense of let's say, for example, a capital markets organization. Now again, similarly, that's the tree for the capital markets organization. Different kinds of organizations within the capital market setup, so mutual funds, depository participants, investment advisory, stock broking. So if we get into a brokerage setup, for example, different processes in a brokerage setup, and client retention, compliances, and if you then keep drilling down, you'll you'll have the entire RCM with the automation library already configured and set up as part of this as well. Now, similarly, if we go back to let's say like a life insurance company, that's again something that is available as a pre-configured library. Now, these are all the processes of a life insurance company, and similarly, if you keep drilling down into each process, there is a pre-populated RCM library with different kinds of automations already set up. So I thought, I hope this gives you a good sense of how a repository is created and set up on the system. And the comment that I made initially that, once an organization has gone through a 12 to 15 to 18 month kind of a period of this kind of an implementation, you will eventually, have a setup where all your process repository and RCM repositories are configured and set up on the platform, and nearly 60% plus of your overall audit universe can be automated and set up. So I hope I'm able to convey the level of automation that you can actually achieve with this. 60% of your audits getting executed through automation and through bots, so you're not wasting time in execution, and you're really applying your time on root causing and finding solutions to the different issues that we find. So I'll just hand it over to my colleague Tejas then, and he will just along with Mansi sort of just help us to walk through the P2P check that we had spoken about. It's going to be a 10 to 12 minute exercise, so just request your patience, and I'm sure you'll find it quite interesting. Yeah. So Tejas, over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Apurv. Good afternoon, everyone. So Mansi, if you can just start, and we go to one example of procurement. So the example which we will pick is a pretty standard one and a quite a complex one as well, wherein the material price variance is calculated from the purchase order data. So the same material code getting procured from the same or different vendor at varied prices over a period of time is what we generally try to validate. We'll try and configure this in the next 10 minutes through this bot. So like you're seeing on the screen right now, she's browsing through the RCM. She found the line item where the checkpoint is around unusual price variance. We add a collector bot to this. So there are multiple options for the input file. So it could be an Excel sheet or a database or some application. It could be a text file depending on the size of the input file. We select the source server. So in this case, we are connecting to a source server. We will show you a few more examples where external data sources or applications could be connected to fetch this data on a periodic basis. The server path from where this data will get populated into its database. And we define the scheduler. So depending on the criticality of the control, one can decide whether you want to run it at what periodicity. So it could be a daily, weekly, monthly, all possible options are available. Right now we are clicking on run once. And of course, once we define the scheduler, we can define the time as well. In case the data is not found at this location for once, so we can define a periodicity for retrying it, and it would be done for 4 to 5 times depending on how we configure it. Yeah, go on, Mansi. And these are some of the additional functionalities. So in case there are multiple files available at that particular folder or path, we can define what should be the prefix, suffix, or maybe a rolling column, even in case that needs to be fetched from any particular Excel sheet. So all of those incremental points could be configured from a data collection perspective. Yeah, so we are through with configuring the collector bot. I hope we did it in a couple of minutes, so it's pretty simple to use. We go on to configure an analytics bot against the same line item. We map it back to the collector bot we just configured. and we again define the scheduler for this. Here we can configure the email IDs to which any error message or the exceptions needs to be parked to. So, this is again configurable. There could be multiple IDs that could be configured here, and the text is customizable. So here we define the rules for this particular checkpoint. So these are the basic nomenclatures which we will fill, and then we build the logics. So we define the rule name, we define the annexure name. Once the exception file is generated, what it needs to be named, the Excel sheet. So here is the alert generated by the system. So since against the same risk and control, we had multiple checkpoints. The system is generating an alert for us to pick up the relevant line item. So she'll select the one with unusual price variance. And then we add a query for this. So we have two options. One is a Python box, one who understands and wants to write a query in Python. That option is available on the portal with the Panda libraries already available on the portal. And there's an SQL page as well, which along with its backend capabilities, we have a front end as well. So on the left hand side, you see the purchase order dump getting auto-populated and collected by the collector bot, which we just ran. And towards the right are all the functionalities which we generally use as auditors or analysts in Excel sheets, starting from all basic mathematical functions to aggregate functions, any possible formatting that we do in an Excel sheet. If we can just scroll a bit, we would see the VLOOKUPs, the joins at the inner left, right joins that we run on Excel sheets using primary keys, various conditions that one wants to apply while analyzing data. There's another leg to it where we can even conditionally format the output column from a color coding or a true false perspective. That we could create pivot tables out of this data and then further analyze it with another Excel sheet. So essentially, 90 to 95% of what we use in Excel, we have tried to build through something like this from the front end. So like Apoor was mentioning, that one doesn't need to be proficient in SQL or Python to use this platform. And with basic drag and drop functionalities through this page, one could easily be able to write queries. So, Mansi, if you can just go on and configure the check, which we intended to. So these are all the columns which are available in the purchase order data. One can select the relevant ones. Alternatively, there's an option to select all columns as well. So like you're seeing on screen right now, so she's selecting the short text, the vendor from which the material is procured, the price, the quantity, and the final net value. So few of the relevant columns that we would need to run this check. Now what we do is we add a couple of columns to map the minimum price and the maximum price at which a certain material was procured. And we also add a column to find the average price at which the same material is getting procured over a period of time. So this is a 6-month sample data that we have right now.
Tejas, can you just move the screen, because they are saying please show the data. They cannot see the can see the presenter. Show it a little bit.
Mansi, maybe can you just unshare and share it again?
Okay, one second.
It's fine. They can see the screen. No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. It's fine.
I think they're able to see the screen. So once we finish the entire configuration, that's when the exceptions will be viewed. So I think one of the questions, one of the comments is that the Excel sheet cannot be seen. So that's all in the background. It's been uploaded onto the system. So that's why it's not available, viewable on the front end of the system.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're creating this union inner join on at the short text level to find at a material code level what is the minimum price and the maximum price and the average price, like you're seeing on the screen right now. So we added a column on minimum price, maximum price. So this is the one on max price. The one on minimum. And finally, to find the average price, we calculate the sum of total value divided by the sum of total quantity. So this is all a one-time configuration where we define all these rules, and every time a fresh purchase order dump will be uploaded, this need not be repeated, and the checks will run all by itself. So what we did just now was to find the minimum, maximum, and the average price. Now we are putting in a condition to say any variance between the maximum and the minimum price, say if it's greater than 20%, only those needs to be exceptions, so as to ensure we have minimum false positives. So that was condition 1. Then we write condition 2 on the max price. Find the price variance, and it should be greater than 20. And finally, we run the VLOOKUP at the short text level from both the data sets. Once we click on add query and the query is built, there we see on the box right on the bottom of the screen, the entire SQL query has got auto built. So we did not have anybody who understood SQL in this forum, and using the front end query builder page, we could do that. And now this is an editable field. So one who understands and wants to modify any of the sections of this query can do that. We can preview the result at this stage to get an assurance on how it's going. Yeah, you can just scroll to the right. It gives us a sense of how many total exception rows are forming part of the final exception sheet and the columns that we added. We can add the query. And we save it. Now all we'll have to do is go back to the same line item of the RCM and view exceptions. Yeah, there we see the exceptions have got generated. So all the 59 rows that we saw are populated with a minimum, maximum, and the price variance for each of these, which are obviously greater than 20%. Now one can further slice, dice, and play around with this data in case some of the relevant columns are not required. We can strike those off. We can get those back as well. With the filtering and the sorting options that we use in Excel sheets can be used on the platform as well. Yeah, so like you're seeing on the screen right now, she's sorting at a maximum price level in case a certain vendor needs to be looked up from this data. One can do that, writing certain keywords from the vendor name or the vendor code. There's a download option available on the top right of the screen, which allows you to download these exceptions into an Excel sheet. And this obviously will also get auto parked at the email on the email ID which we configured at the previous stage. We also have a pinning option of creating a personalized dashboard. So if this is one of the most important controls that you would want to look at on an ongoing basis, this could be to your home page, and every time you log on to this platform, a refreshed version of this chart you would be able to see. So we click on add charts and also quickly configure how it works. So in this case, we select a line chart. We select what needs to be there on the x-axis. So that's the material, text, and the code. We can define the scale and the data required on the y-axis. So in this case, the maximum, minimum, and the average price. So we can keep adding whatever we need on the y-axis. And we are through. Once we save it, the chart will be generated. Yeah, there we see the chart is generated. Now one can pin this and keep on getting a refresh version of this every time one logs in. So maybe we can go to the home page, Mansi, and yeah, there are further slicing dicing options. I'm sorry, I missed that out. On the exception, like we had on the exception table, we can play around with this chart as well.
Yep, maybe just in view of the time, if we can just quickly show the overall dashboard of the org level dashboard, and then we can get into the other case studies here.
Yeah, so at the home page, apart from the charts that one would have pinned, one can get an overall view of the entire organization as to what the control inventory is and how many controls failed. So at a business unit level, we get to see the exception count
So
in
for
terms of controls.
each function, and then at an overall level, this dashboard will basically tell you that these are the total number of controls that are sitting on the system as an overall automation repository. Now, on an ongoing basis, once the validations keep happening, the dashboard will automatically keep getting updated on how many controls have passed and there's been no exceptions, and also then how many controls have failed, and where there are a number of exceptions. Now, for each one of them, you could click and actually drill down to the individual control points where the failures are there, and then if you can further drill down to the actual transaction where the failures have happened. So you could drill down further and go to the actual transactions where the control has failed, right? So from an overall org level dashboard, one is able to drill down to the actual transactions where there has been a failure. So just a couple of, I think, questions that you've sent in on this specific case, where I think one of the questions is how is the bot only read only, and is it actually going and updating data on is it going and updating and making changes on the source system? So the bot is only connecting to the source system to extract data, and it is then uploaded onto the automation platform, which is not connected to the source system in any way. So there is all the analytics and the queries and the validations, everything is run on the automation platform, and there's no real updation that is happening on the source system in any way. So there's no integrity issues. It doesn't go and interact with the original data on the source system. It just extracts information, and then everything happens offline. I think one of the other questions related to this is that is the OCR tool separate, and is that integrated with this system? So yes, the OCR tool is also integrated with this system, and it is part of the integrated offering. So the data collector bot, for example, you could also program it to use the OCR to extract information and then do the further validations. So I hope this was useful, and it gave everybody a sense of how basic audit validations can be configured and set up. If we just go to the second case study then, This is one, where, like I mentioned initially, we are doing as part of accounts payable audits, we do invoice validation reviews, where again, currently, we are only able to look at a sample, invoices, and we are not able to look at a larger population. So using OCR again, in this case study, we'll be able to show you how the invoice template can be mapped, coordinates can be mapped on the invoice template, how it picks out information from relevant areas of the invoice, and how then further validations can be built on top of that. So it's again a 5 to 6 minute case study. Please have patience, and Tejas will just quickly walk us through how this is done. Tejas, over to you again.
Yeah, thanks, Apoor. So like you would have seen on the previous page, just while the video started, we configured from the drop down to select an invoice reader on the portal through the OCR engine. And we selected the path on which all these invoice templates reside. The system logs on to this. This is again a one-time configuration where we define the various fields which are relevant in an invoice. So be a bit of PO number, the invoice number, the description, the name of the vendor, the tax identification number. So it goes on to each of these. It maps the exact coordinates of all these fields, and at a vendor level, it creates templates in its database. So this goes through a machine learning module where the algorithm develops itself and makes it intelligent enough once it has 40, 50 samples of the same template. And then there is no restriction on the thousands and millions of templates that could be uploaded on this portal. And all this information would be extracted all by itself into a structured Excel sheet.
Yeah, so several invoice templates, for example, will have to be put in through this machine learning process. For every template, this kind of bot mapping will have to be done. And like you're seeing on the screen, for all of the relevant fields, the coordinates have been mapped, and now once the system has been trained on this template, then it will keep looking at the invoices and pulling out information and plotting it into different columns under relevant headers, etc.
So like the previous example, this is also linked to a RCM line item, and the bot, for in this case, instead of an Excel sheet, it's an invoice reader, which is in a PDF format. So we just configured it for one template, and now we have multiple such templates stored at a specified location. We selected the path. We select the relevant line item from the risk control matrix. And we follow the same process of defining the schedulers. Here we are selecting the destination path where the Excel sheet, the output Excel sheet will be placed. So once we are through, the bot results can be seen. Yeah, so on the specified path, it has placed the Excel sheet.
So all the information that the OCR engine extracted from the invoices, that is now extracted in this structured template and Excel columns. And now once all of this information is available, the whole host of audit checks that we need to build in can be set up on the analytics bot like we had showed you earlier. And one is able to then run the audit on the entire population of invoices for a particular period. So, I hope you're able to appreciate the extent of benefits that its efficiency and the level of assurance that it's able to bring in. Now, the next example is another one where for some vendors, for example, all of the vendor information and the invoice related information is available as part of a QR code. So again, using technology, you can read the QR code and extract all the information. So again, this is dependent on whether the invoices come with a QR code already affixed. So in quite a few geographies, the regulators, for example, are now with GST and VAT and similar kinds of regulations coming in. Vendors are being mandated to have all of this information available on a QR code, the invoice information. So the technology reads the QR code, extracts all the information, and then again we can build a whole set of validation. So another example of how invoice validation can be done, using QR code reader. Yeah, Tejas.
Yeah, so like we're seeing on the screen right now, apart from the fields that we are extracted in the previous example, we are also reading the information in this QR code, which is generated on a government's website, and that gets cross-checked or cross-validated with the information mentioned by the vendor on the invoice. So this is another use case, like we're seeing on the screen now. It has created this matching details, and now like you're seeing on the screen, there are columns which will tell us that what was a part of QR and what is a part of the invoice, and it gives you a mismatch status of all the relevant 7 or 8 fields. Yeah, so Apur, this was about the QR code. We go to the next example.
So if we go to the next case study, then this is one where, let's say if we have to connect to an external data source and pull out information from the external data source. So, let's say organizations that have multiple retail stores, or, let's say tower infrastructure companies that have multiple towers, they have to pay electricity bills for different places. Now, how do you do invoice validation for where you have to extract data from an external source? So in this example, there is, we'll show you how a bot can be configured to connect to an external data source, how information is extracted from that data source, how then OCR or any other technology is applied to extract information from the extracted data, and then how validations are built. So again, one doesn't really need high level of technical proficiency to be able to configure these bots that actually connect to an external source and pull out information. You'll see on the screen, and Tejas will walk us through that. It's quite straightforward, and even lay users like us will be able to do this kind of a configuration. So Tejas, over to you again quickly on this.
Yeah, thanks. So like we are seeing on the screen, this is a web crawler where we define the various actions that we generally do on a URL. So it could be typically writing some text while typing a username and password. So in the first two examples that got dragged, it was a text box that we dragged and we selected the event as typing it. In this case, the next item is clicking on a button of login. So here we selected the action of click. So that's how a login would happen on an external website. So it'll put in the username and password. Now, once we get onto this, we will obviously want to say search and click on a particular tab to find out historical electricity bills. So here we selected history search, and our action is to click on it. So like you're seeing in the event, we'll select click, and the wait time is 1 second. The next event would be, once it is selected, we find the consumer number from the page, and we click on that. We go to bill history, we click, and we add this step. Then from the drop down, we have to select the consumer number. So the next action is a drop down.
So basically what you're seeing is the entire sequence of events that one needs to follow, what tab to click, what button to press, what period to put in, and then extract information from a particular place, how the bot is programmed and set up to execute that entire sequence. So this is how that initial one-time configuration happens, for the bot to be able to go to the external source and pull out information.
So likewise, from the drop down, we select the start date and end date for which the bill needs to be extracted. And finally, we have another action button to search on to click on the action button so that all these PDF bills could be displayed. And once it is done, we click on download. And the last action is once all the electricity bills are displayed on screen, the last action is to click on downloading all these PDF files, which can then be used for our analysis. So the next step will continue to be the same, and we using an OCR engine.
Correct, where the OCR engine then reads all the invoices, extracts information, populates it into Excel, and then you build the validation checks on top of that. Yeah. So just in the interest of time, we'll then quickly move on to the next case, where this is an example of how information is extracted from SAP or an Oracle, for example, or any other ERP system. So in this case as well, like you saw here, the bot is basically programmed to get into a particular module of SAP. You then sort of program the bot that this is the tab that you have to click on. This is how you get to, let's say, a vendor GL, and the period for which you want to extract a vendor GL detail, and it will then extract this information and store it in a particular location where it will then be picked up for further automation. So say this entire sequence of events of when it's what tab it is going to, what T code to enter, what period of data to be taken. This entire sequence is programmable and configurable, like in the example that we had just shown you. And once it is then set up, obviously basis the scheduler, it works by itself. So what you're seeing on the screen is where the vendor GL has been extracted, and it is then directly taken from SAP. So like this, if you want to extract a purchase order dump or a fixed assets register, or let's say HR details for HR reviews or for fixed asset reviews, you could connect to different modules and try to extract information automatically, and you don't then have to wait for follow-ups with different process owners. So if we then move on to the next one, this is again a quick one, a couple of minutes, where we are looking at how KYC validation can be done. So in this example, again, we will show you a case where the UAE national ID template is created, coordinates are mapped for that template, information is extracted from that template, and then it can be mapped to it can be used for validation against the customer database. So we just have another 3-4 minutes here, so if we can just quickly go through this.
Yeah, so like we did in the invoice, again with a UAE national ID, we pick up, we define the specific coordinates for finding the ID number and extracting it, the name, the address, and all of the relevant information available on any ID or a passport. This again similarly goes through a machine learning module where multiple 50, 60, 100 samples will have to be put into through this platform. But post that, there's no restriction on the volume of transactions that it could handle. So in this case, we have been able to configure passports and national IDs for 30 to 40 countries while we speak. Which enables us to walk into any of these KYC regulated environment and give you a compliance posture on this aspect.
Yeah, and then the last one that we had quickly, maybe another just couple of minutes. This is one where for let's say like a retail chain that has multiple stores, If you want to look at sales performance, what inventories is selling, is not selling, let's say some new materials or some new items that you've introduced, if you want to monitor those, how different sales data can be picked up from system, how that can be configured and set up for meaningful analytics. And then, how audit checks can be built on that data for further validation and use for audits. So just again, quickly, Tejas, if we can just walk through this one quickly, we are, I think, done with time.
Sure. So in this case, for example, across the country, say there are 100 retail stores, and to monitor the store performance at a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and to do a sales performance review of this retail chain, we have developed this solution on the platform where a target versus actual performance on a various periodicity could be defined and monitored using sales, POS data, and few other information from the background. We could also look at a product availability performance report. So in terms of what management is reporting in terms of product availability against the sales performance, we could do that as well using this automation. And one more example on, for example, instance, looking at and monitoring the new arrivals in the market and at that organization's retail store. So we could monitor that performance as well as to how the performance is as against what MISs or dashboards are being published by the management to the CEO. So at a department level, what was the target sales and what was the actual sales and what's the percentage? So this again gets populated from the point of sale information. So I hope this gives all of us a sense of where are we heading and how this will be helpful.
Yeah. So I think one of the questions that has come in is, there are a lot of non-standard invoice templates, and different vendors obviously have different invoice templates. So like we had explained initially, obviously it goes through a machine learning process where different templates have to be trained. The bot has to be trained to read different templates, and you can keep the bot, you can train the bot with as many templates as you want to. It'll keep going through each one, and once it has been programmed, then it'll obviously run through automation. So every template will have to be put in through a training process with the bot. So if we can, so just to summarize the last slide here, then to close the session, obviously everybody understands, how this kind of automation is helping us. It obviously leads to significantly enhanced productivity. Almost like I mentioned initially, 60 to 70% of the audit universe can be automated, and the level of assurance that you're able to offer, because now you're looking at the full universe of data, is significantly enhanced. The auditor's time is obviously efficiently utilized. You're no longer spending bulk of your time on audit execution. We are spending our time on solutioning and root causing and finding closure for the issues. The accuracy level is obviously significantly enhanced because you're no longer doing it manually. Manual errors and dependency on an individual's understanding of the audit checks, that is completely eliminated. And then obviously for organizations that have a large geographical spread, you could have a system like this sitting centrally and executing everything centrally. You don't really need to travel to on-site locations because you can get data sitting in a central location and keep executing. So just to close, all of these cases were real implementations and case studies at actual clients. So it's just not theoretical concepts, and these are all working case studies. I hope everybody sort of found it interesting, and we were able to impress upon you, different scenarios and different audit types where automation can be used. I think just one of the last questions where somebody is trying to check, what the system is and what is the platform. So the platform is called Droot. That's the name of the system, and both the OCR and the audit validation setups are all part of the integrated system itself. So I don't know if there are any other questions or not. If there's anything, please do reach out to us directly, and we'll be happy to respond. Yeah. So, Yasmin, back to you, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Apurva and Tejas. That was a very wonderful presentation. I hope everybody is going to benefit and start implementing in their organizations. Should there be any other questions, either they get back to you or we'll get back to you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed the session. Kindly note that the presentations are going to be uploaded on the website and the videos are going to be on our YouTube channel. So stay tuned to that. And the certificates are going to be issued and sent to you within a week's time. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day and see you all tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Apurva, I'm sorry, just can you repeat again the name of the tool because they are asking again? Just repeat it because they didn't recall the name.
Yeah, it's called Drut, D-R-U-T, Drut.
Similar on the robot that we can see it, D-R-U-T.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
the
you
name
so
of
much.
the robot.
Thank you for your time and this session. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.